My sister wanted to be a legitimate daughter, and she was finally adopted by the eldest lady. As a result, the eldest lady had a boring temperament, and only taught her to dial the abacus and read the account book, and did not know how to please her husband at all. On the contrary, I grew up with my aunt, singing and dancing, and the sons of Jingzhong all love me. My sister fell in love with me, and even his mother said when she came to the door, "It doesn't matter if you are a concubine. The most important thing is that my son is happy." My sister went mad and killed me, and went with me back to the day I was adopted. This time, she hid behind her father. My daughter doesn't want to be adopted by the eldest lady, and she would rather follow Aunt Zhao. I hurriedly stepped forward and hugged the eldest lady's leg. In this life, it is finally my turn to live a good life. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. After the death of Aunt Song of the Shin Mansion, she left behind 2 concubines, my sister Shin Wanrong and me, Shin Wanning. At this moment, we are standing next to my father on the left and right, and opposite is our mother-in-law, Mrs. Shin. My father said, "Madam, these 2 girls are very pitiful without their mothers, so it is better for you to keep one of them with you. I know that you are not in good health, and I am afraid that you will not be able to take care of 2 at the same time. And it just so happens that Aunt Zhao has no children, so it is good to ask Aunt Zhao to take care of it on your behalf." Before the words fell, my sister had already pulled my father's sleeve. "Dad, my daughter wants to follow Aunt Zhao." My dad was stunned. He has always liked my sister more, and he knows that my sister has the highest spirit. Now that I don't have the opportunity to be a concubine by the side of the eldest lady, I actually want to take the initiative to go to Aunt Zhao's side. "Wronger, you are," my sister hurriedly said. "Dad, I've really thought about it, so let the eldest lady adopt my sister." After speaking, she was afraid that the matter would not be settled, and went straight to Aunt Zhao's yard in a panic. She smiled quietly at me as she passed me. "In this life, you should be this concubine who has suffered so much." I know why Shin Wanrong said this. In her previous life, she wanted to be a concubine, so she rushed into the arms of the eldest lady first. But after entering the courtyard of the eldest lady, she realized how naive she was. Although the eldest lady is the main wife, she has no favor from my father at all, and the whole courtyard is deserted. And the eldest lady herself has no means to compete for favor at all. She will not please my father at all. And she doesn't even work hard. She cultivates in the Buddhist hall every day. Shin Wanrong followed the eldest lady and was disciplined very strictly. Before dawn, I was called by my mother-in-law, washed and dressed, and went to the women's school in Beijing to follow the master to class. After coming back, she couldn't rest, and the eldest lady would personally watch her learn to dial the abacus and read the account book, and work hard all the way until the evening. Shin Wanrong was miserable, especially when she was dizzy from the accounts. I followed Aunt Zhao to the troupe to listen to the play, when her hand hurt from writing. Aunt Zhao led me to fly a kite, not to mention, when the 2 of us were old and went to attend the elegant gathering of the young ladies in Beijing, I was dressed up by Aunt Zhao as bright as a peach and plum, and I could sing and play the piano. And the princes and grandchildren in Beijing all admired me and called me the first beauty in Beijing. But Shin Wanrong is not cared for, she has no talent, and the things that the eldest lady taught her are not useful at all on this occasion. Fortunately, Shin Wanrong at least has the identity of a concubine, and she has an advantage when talking about matchmaking. Therefore, after she fell in love with the little Marquis of Schwamping's mansion, she knelt in front of the eldest lady without eating or drinking. "Mother, please go to the home mansion to say goodbye to me." The eldest lady ignored her plea at all, and said lightly, "You are not yet old, this matter will be discussed later. And you are so infatuated and crazy now. You will have a big trouble, and you will be punished to go to the Buddha hall to copy the Heart Sutra 30 times. When Shin Wanrong was punished to go to the Buddhist hall to copy scriptures, I danced the green waist dance taught to me by Aunt Zhao at the elegant gathering. Aunt Zhao herself is a dancing girl. This green waist dance is her mastery. I was taught by her personally, dancing among the flowers, smiling and graceful, stirring the heartstrings of countless princes and grandsons. It is said that on that day, everyone in the capital fell for me, and the little Marquis who was missed by Shin Wanrong was even more moved by my dance. By the time Shin Wanrong finally came out of the Buddhist hall, the post of the Ho mansion asking to marry me had been directly handed to the Shin mansion, came to say that it was the mother of the little Marquis, and the old lady smiled kindly. I know that the second girl is a concubine who grew up with her aunt. It doesn't matter. I am also a concubine. I don't care about any concubine. The most important thing is that my son is happy himself. Shin Wanrong went crazy. She rushed into my house with oil drums and lit a fire. We died together in the fire and were born again together. In this life, my sister chose Aunt Zhao without hesitation. She said to me, in our Shin family, the title of concubine is just a joke. You go and suffer with that dead old woman. The eldest lady is indeed a little bitter here. My father spoiled his concubine and killed his wife, and the whole capital was famous. It's just that in the previous life, we were too young to realize this. When I entered the eldest lady's room, I only felt that this was a snow cave, with no decoration at all. Except for the tables, chairs, and furniture, only a Buddha statue and an incense burner. The eldest lady closed her eyes and bowed to the Buddha, and asked me in the faint sandalwood, "Are you disappointed in my last life?" With my sister's temperament, she must have written the word disappointment directly on her face when she entered the house. Who would have thought that after falling out of favor, the furnishings in the room were not as good as the concubine's room? You must know that Aunt Zhao's house is paved with gold and jade, magnificent, and very stylish. I just calmly added a piece of agarwood to the incense burner. My daughter thinks that when the room is simple, people's hearts will be brighter. After all, no amount of gold and jade can compare to the sunlight shining in from the window. At this moment, the sunlight is quietly shining on the floor of the room. The eldest lady raised her eyebrows slightly, and she turned her eyes to look at me, and there seemed to be a hint of surprise in her eyes. She didn't expect me to say that. "Kind of interesting girl," she said lightly. "Well, since you follow me, I will raise you in the future. I'm strict, and you don't necessarily like what I teach." I lowered my hand. "Whatever Madam teaches, Ninger will learn." Mountains of accounts spread out before my eyes, and the abacus was set up in front of the table. The eldest lady held a ring ruler and looked cold. "Be focused. If you are distracted more than 3 times, I will hit your palm." Learning to read accounts is really boring. It's not like poetry. These numbers are a headache. What is income? What is expenditure? It's not easy to figure it out, let alone analyze what to analyze from it. I would also be drowsy from time to time. And then the ruler of the eldest lady would fall into the palm of my hand. Actually, she didn't hurt the fight, but I was still immediately excited. The eldest lady put away the ring ruler and said in a low voice, "It's hard, isn't it?" I shook my head, thought for a moment, and nodded. "It's hard." The eldest lady's eyes darkened. I continued, "But I know that if I don't know this, and I marry and become a housewife in the future, everyone can rely on me for not understanding, bully me, fool me. And it will definitely be even harder. People always have to endure hardships, and daughters would rather suffer from learning than from ignorance." The eldest lady raised her eyebrows slightly. She is actually a very good-looking woman, and her eyebrows can vaguely show the beauty of the year. It's just that now he is dressed plainly and worships the Buddha, with a heavy twilight on his body. In fact, I like her very much, although she is always indifferent to me. But when the weather is cold and the season changes, she will quietly come to help me fold the quilt in the middle of the night, and then leave quietly. But my dad didn't like her, and he rarely came to our yard in the past few days. That evening, my dad finally came. He would come to the eldest lady once a month, which was regarded as a face for his wife. On that day, the people in the courtyard would be happily busy, and the atmosphere was much happier than before. But this time, my father had not been sitting for half an hour, and there was a singing voice outside the courtyard. "The crow-like sideburns are like knife cuts, and the small hibiscus flowers have narrow foreheads. If you don't make up, I'm afraid that my mother will guess, inevitably." The golden hairpin is inserted, half fluffy and half crooked. Dad couldn't help but ask, "Who's singing?" The next said, "It's Aunt Zhao who is teaching Miss Rong to learn to sing." A moment later, Aunt Zhao walked in with a gust of fragrant wind. She dressed herself up in a fancy way, holding Shin Wanrong, who was also showy. "Did Shin Lang hear Ronger singing? Is it better than I sang back then?" My father's eyebrows widened. "I think back then, when you met me for the first time in the Huxin Pavilion, you sang this song," Aunt Zhao said shyly. "I didn't expect Shin Lang to remember. The slave's voice is not as good as it was back then, but fortunately, I can teach this to my daughter Ronger. How about inviting your father to go to the room and sing it again?" Shin Wanrong immediately stepped forward obediently and grabbed my father's sleeve. "Daddy, my aunt and I miss you. and there is tea and fruit in the yard. Can my father listen to me sing while eating? She and Aunt Zhao were on the left and right, smiling smartly, but in a moment's time, my father had been pulled away. In the eldest lady's room, there was only silence. A few little maids inevitably showed a look of frustration. The master came like this once a month, and he was robbed. Madam, is this dish on or off? Many of the dishes tonight were specially made by the small kitchen when they learned that the master was coming. Before the eldest lady could speak, I stood up. Come on, why not? I said. My dad doesn't eat it. We do. Why? If the men don't come, we women won't even be able to eat. Up, all on. There are 8 immortals in pearl stew today. Right, I love this dish the most. I can eat a pot of it. The maids were raised by my words, and immediately began to prepare vegetables, and the atmosphere of the whole room became lively again. The eldest lady looked at me, for a long time, and smiled rarely. Good girl, she's a competitive. Since then, the eldest lady has often asked the small kitchen to make this pearl stewed 8 immortals. I've eaten countless bowls, but I still haven't been able to see my dad again. He stayed with Aunt Zhao almost every day, and when he got anything fresh and delicious and fun in the house, he also followed Aunt Zhao and Shen Wanrong first. During the day, Shen Wanrong saw me and laughed so much that her earrings were shaking. See, what about the daughter-in-law? Whoever is in the father's heart will live a dignified life. Your old woman is a piece of shit. Just wait to learn from her to be a little piece of shit. She waited to see my sad expression that was about to cry, but my expression remained unchanged, and said lightly, Sister, have you ever thought that something like Xiaozuer is sung by the drama Yuling? Aunt Zhao can let you sing a little song to invite pets now, and she will be able to practice you more in the future. Shen Wanrong's face changed, but after a moment, she laughed. You're just jealous. Wait, you'll have more to suffer in the future. With that, she turned and left. But I didn't lie to her. In my previous life, Aunt Zhao also treated me like this. She taught me to sing, she taught me to dance, and she showed me all kinds of talents. At that time, there were only the eldest lady and Aunt Zhao in the house, and the eldest lady was not favored, and Aunt Zhao was enough to keep her father with these. But later, my father accepted young and beautiful newcomers in, and these were not enough. Aunt Zhao had to rise the means. She drugged me and made me vomit and diarrhea. He smeared lard on the ground where I was practicing, and deliberately caused me to fall and injure myself. When I was sick and injured, she went to my father and cried bitterly, begging him to come and see me, and keep him in this way. Those years were like a nightmare to me. From Aunt Zhao, I can see very clearly that if you rely on a man's love, then you will have to fight with other women for this love for the rest of your life. If you continue to fight, there will always be a day when you lose, and the eldest lady, she didn't fight, but she didn't lose. In that snowy cave-like room, the head of the grange and the owner of the shop came and went, and everyone respected her with great respect and did not dare to fool her. The maid and the maid are even more orderly and loyal to her. I want to be such a housewife in my life. In this way, Shen Wanrong followed Aunt Zhao to continue to learn to sing and dance, and to show off the wind and moon. And while I was learning to manage the bookkeeper and take care of the upper and lower levels with the eldest lady, I put forward new requirements. Madam, I want to learn the sword. Madam was stunned. She did have a sword in her room. From the words of the people below, I pieced together the past of my wife. She was a former general, and at the age of 15 she carried a sword to kill the rebels and deliver letters to her father and brother who were trapped in the city. It's just that my father died in battle, and after my brother married my sister-in-law, he hastily married her to my father, who was a civil official of the 5th grade. The past is covered with dust, and the sword is quietly dusting there. In the previous life, Ronger was very afraid of that sword, but I felt that the sword made me yearn for it. Ask Madam to teach me how to learn swords. I looked at Madam, and she was expressionless, and my heart became more and more worried. I don't know if the sword is an honor or a wound to her. After a long time, Madam turned around coldly, leaving me with only a back. Just when I was frustrated that this was a refusal, Madam dropped a sentence from afar. Come to the yard, show me a horse. From that day on, I practiced swords with my wife. Practiced 3 nines in winter and 3 dogs in summer. Spring went to winter, and in a blink of an eye, I became a big girl. On that day, I practiced swords by the lake. The sword light flew up, swirling over the peach blossom branches around it, and after a while, all the flower stems fell together, leaving only a neat cross-sectional incision. I know, I've done it. Suddenly there was a cheer behind me, and I turned my head sharply. Only to find that a group of people had come to the back of the mountain rock at some point. It's a group of young ladies who came out to go out. Among them, there is my sister Shinwanrong. I have to say that Shinwanrong is indeed the most outstanding of the nobles in today's family. She is wearing a peach skirt today. She is more beautiful than peach blossoms, and those sons are around her and continue to be courteous. This was something she had never experienced in her previous life, however. Just when she was almost getting drunk, the boys saw me dancing with a sword by the lake. The son who was the leader took the lead in sighing. In the past, there was a beautiful woman Gongsun clan, and a sword weapon moved in all directions. Now I can see a beautiful woman, and I am better than the Gongsun clan. As soon as he said this, the rest of the sons echoed him. No one paid attention to Shinwanrong next to him. Shinwanrong looked at me, her gaze so gloomy that she almost dripped water. That day, after I returned from sword practice, I had just taken a shower in a hurry when I heard a commotion at the door. Miss Rong's hairpin is lost, you search carefully. I walked out wiping my dripping hair and collided with Shinwanrong with a group of maids and servants. I said coldly, "What are you crazy about?" She glanced at me, and said to the people around her, "I know that Sister Ninger will not steal from me. Just to avoid suspicion, I have to search her house as well." The servants got the order, rushed into my house, and turned around. After a while, someone rushed out with a hairpin. "Miss, I found it in the dresser of the second lady." At this moment, my dad happened to be back from a party. He heard the crowd and couldn't help but walk in. "What's going on?" As soon as he came in, Shinwanrong began to cry. "Sister, I know that you envy me and my aunt for being hurt by my father even more with good food and clothing, but you can't steal my hairpin. This is my aunt's family heirloom." My aunt knew that this hairpin was gone today, and she was so angry that she fainted on the spot, and now she is still unconscious. "Daddy, please make the decision for your aunt." In the ancestral hall, several subordinates escorted me. My father sat high on the main seat, next to Aunt Zhao and Shinwanrong, who were sobbing aggrievedly, for some reason. I looked at the two of them crying like they were carved out of a mold, and I thought it was so funny, so I couldn't help but laugh. My dad was furious. "What are you laughing at?" "Laughing at stealing something. It's a ruin for my Shin family to have a daughter like you. And I should beat you to death today." I looked up and looked coldly at this man who was related to me by blood. I have no doubt that he would dare to beat me to death. It is impossible for the Shin family to kill their concubine. But in the final analysis, I am not the eldest lady's biological son, and my biological mother is just a maid. What's more, the eldest lady usually treats me coldly, and I don't think she has any affection for me outside. Aunt Zhao clutched her chest crying and panting. "Shinlang, you know, this hairpin is a relic left to me by my mother, and the things in the palace of the former dynasty cannot be more valuable. In fact, no matter how valuable the object is, if Miss Ning likes it, the slave family will definitely give it with both hands." But why did she steal? If it spreads and the reputation of the Shin family's daughter is damaged, what will happen to my Ronger's marriage? Aunt Zhao was about to faint again as she spoke, and Shinwanrong hurriedly helped her to ease her. My father stared at me for a long time and said coldly, "Come on, please become a monk." According to family law, stealing is 30 boards. Under one board, the skin is open, and 30 boards. Even if you don't die, you will be a waste person in the second half of your life. At the last moment, a cold voice suddenly came from the door. "I'll see who dares." The grand lady walked in. She went to bed early, and she should have fallen asleep at this time. I didn't expect her to come. The eldest lady walked up to me and looked at my father coldly. "Master, the official interrogator also pays attention to distinguishing between right and wrong, and he will be punished directly without favoring one side." My father's face turned pale. Aunt Zhao immediately cried, "How can you not distinguish between right and wrong? This stolen goods were found in Miss Ning's room. Could it be that because she was raised by Madam wanted to protect her?" Aunt Zhao is not afraid of the eldest lady. Over the years, my father has spoiled his concubine and killed his wife, and Aunt Zhao has always felt that she is the most noble woman in this house. As for my mother, she is just a wasted housewife who is not liked by her husband and is in a quiet corner. Therefore, even if she meets the gong in front of her, she is not afraid. However, the eldest lady, who was dressed in plain clothes and said little, suddenly turned her head and looked at Aunt Zhao. At that moment, an inconvenient majesty burst out of her body. "Kneel." Aunt Zhao was stunned. The eldest lady paused word by word. what can't be on the table? Take your daughter and kneel down together." Aunt Zhao looked at my father pleadingly. "Shen Lang, it." The father did not speak, but looked behind the eldest lady with a pale face. There were a dozen or so tall men, and they did not enter the house, but stood silently outside the room, each like a silent iron tower. It was a government soldier, a person who was married by the eldest lady from the general's mansion. I saw them too. In the past, I thought they were just ordinary family members, calling them Uncle Lou and Uncle Lee, and they all agreed with a smile and bought me sesame candy to eat. Now they are all wearing armor and standing silently. Each of them is a martial artist who has killed people on the battlefield with the old general and seen blood. My dad's hands were shaking. He said to Aunt Zhao in a trembling voice, "The master mother speaks, you talk back. It is indeed disrespectful. And you don't kneel down to admit your mistakes." Aunt Zhao looked at her father in disbelief. "Father, get down on your knees." Aunt Zhao trembled with fright, so she pulled Shen Wanrong and knelt down reluctantly, but she still didn't give up, and held up the hairpin and handed it to the eldest lady. "Madam, this stolen goods were really found in Miss Ning's room. This is a relic left to me by my mother, something that can no longer be bought on the market now." The eldest lady took the hairpin from Aunt Zhao's hand, squinted her eyes, and looked at it seriously. In the next moment, she threw the hairpin directly to the ground. The room was silent, everyone was stunned. Aunt Zhao has been in this Shen mansion for more than 10 years, and no one has ever dared to drop her things. Aunt Zhao herself was stunned. She looked at the hairpin that was thrown on the ground, and forgot to cry for a while. The eldest lady looked at my father coldly. "Master, do you think my daughter Lu Jiangyun is guilty of stealing such a thing?" Seeing that my father was silent, the eldest lady looked back and instructed her bride-in-waiting, "Mother Wu, take my makeup box." The eldest lady rarely dresses up. She only wears plain clothes every day, and her head is full of green silk and is held by a wooden hairpin. Even I didn't know that she still had a makeup box. Mother Wu quickly took the 2 little servants and took a huge sandalwood box, open. A room full of light. My father's newly married Aunt Meng is a palace maid who was released from the palace, and she has seen the world very much, and she is the first to exclaim at this moment, "Oh my God, this is a tribute-grade jade from the western regions. That piece of jade field was reclaimed decades ago, and I have only seen bracelets with such waterheads in the old lady's place. There are even coral beads. These beads are on the market. One can be exchanged for 10 gold ingots. And Mrs. actually has such a big string of coral bead necklace." Aunt Zhao's face was dull. Shen Wanrong looked at this box full of rare treasures in a daze. There was confusion, shock, and resentment in her eyes. In her previous life, she had been by the side of the eldest lady for so many years, and she had never known that there were so many treasures hidden in that snowy cave-like house. The eldest lady ignored anyone, but turned her head and beckoned to me. "Come here, pick a few." "Me, huh?" It took me a moment to react and quickly waved my hand. "This is too valuable, I can't take it." The eldest lady chuckled. "How many pieces of jewelry don't dare? You are my daughter, and I will need you to inherit my things in the future." For a moment, all the envious eyes of the room fell on me. Shen Wanrong glared at me, her gaze almost dripping blood. Aunt Zhao's face was already as dead as ashes, but she was still struggling to make a last stand. "Madam, I know that Miss Ning grew up with you. She is a golden and noble woman, and her concubine is the same as her, and my appearance is not as good as her. You want to protect Miss Ning. No one dares to disobey you. But is it possible that with this huge Shen mansion, the master mother and concubine can act recklessly, and the lives of our aunts and concubines are not fate?" The eldest lady looked at Aunt Zhao, and she suddenly smiled. When the eldest lady said coldly, Aunt Zhao was never afraid of her, but at this moment, the eldest lady smiled. It was just a calm smile, but Aunt Zhao shuddered. The eldest lady stared at Aunt Zhao, but said to Mother Wu, "Bring it on." Mother Wu understood, turned around and went out, and after a while, 2 government soldiers pressed a maid with a cloak of hair on her head. Shen Wanrong lost his voice and said, "Little Lotus." Aunt Zhao pinched Shen Wanrong fiercely, and Shen Wanrong swallowed her words, but her body couldn't help but tremble. She couldn't help but tremble, because the maid named Xiaohe was lying on the ground. Her face was covered with blood, and her 10 fingers were sandwiched between the wooden boards, and the flesh and blood were blurred. The ladies in the room all screamed in fear, and they all looked sideways to avoid it. Only the eldest lady was not surprised, and said in a voice that did not rise or fall, "In the afternoon, Mother Wu saw this maid running around the yard, making a noise to distract the people on duty. Later, he appeared in the inner room, and when he came out, he was seen by a passing housekeeper, and he looked very panicked. I don't think it's right, so I'll make the decision to judge the master first. This is a recorded confession Xiaohe has signed and drawn. The master can take a look. The eldest lady waved her hand gently, and Mother Wu presented a confession with a handprint to my father, as if anticipating how Aunt Zhao and the others would quibble next. The eldest lady faintly sealed all the retreats, in order to prevent someone saying that I was beaten into a trick. When I was interrogating, I specially invited the elders of the clan to come and watch as the mother of the Shen family, and they can all testify that what this little girl said is true. My dad was holding the confession of Xiaohe in one hand, and the other hand was constantly shaking. He didn't expect that the eldest lady was so powerful. This woman has been silent since she got married. He thinks she is boring, and he doesn't spoil her much, so she also prefers to stay in a corner of the Buddhist hall to cultivate. However, at this moment, he realized that this woman was silent, but she had already done everything. She was aware of everything and caught the mole in advance. By the time the turmoil really started, she had already finished interrogating people, but he was calm and silent, waiting for the other side to attack first. Now, the matter has become so big that even the clan elders of the Shen family have been invited to witness the interrogation. Even if he wants to protect Aunt Zhao and Shen Wanrong, he can't protect it. That little lotus was so frightened that he kowtowed desperately. The Lord spares his life, the Lord spares his life. It was all instructed by Miss Rong and Aunt Zhao, and they said that they would give me 300 taels of silver after the matter was completed. My father's face was pale. He lowered his head and looked at Aunt Zhao and Shen Wanrong, who were kneeling on the ground. Shen Wanrong has been frightened into a trembling quail. Aunt Zhao has seen the world better than her. At this moment, Pear Blossom looked at my father with rain and used her ability to pretend to be pitiful. Master, the slave family has served you for more than 10 years. You saved the slave family. The eldest lady interrupted Aunt Zhao and walked directly in front of my father. I'll just ask the master a word. Stealing is a big crime, and according to the family law, it is 30 boards. So what about framing him? My father looked at Aunt Zhao, who was crying and almost fainted, and then looked at the eldest lady. He was silent. And the silence was a pleading ma'am. My father whispered, their mother and daughter have done something wrong, but not to the point of planting a false accusation. As soon as these words came out, even the people couldn't look at them. My father spoiled his concubine and killed his wife, and his partiality has reached the point of unforgivable. I am guilty of stealing, and before I find out, I will have to serve the family law. Aunt Zhao and Shen Wanrong framed them. The evidence was conclusive, but they wanted to let it go gently. Everyone showed angry looks, but only the eldest lady's face was still as calm as water. She said lightly, "Oh, that's what my lord thinks," without waiting for my father to answer. The eldest lady had already turned around with her skirt closed, holding Mother Wu's hand and walking out. I originally thought that the ugliness of the family should not be publicized, and I hoped that the master would be able to give a fair statement in the inner house, but now it seems that the old man is busy with government affairs and is dizzy, and this business is not clear. Since this is the case, then report to the officer. Before the words fell, my father's face instantly lost blood. He shouted, "Stop her!" The subordinates of the Shen mansion swarmed around, trying to block the way of the eldest lady. However, the eldest lady lifted her eyelids, and more than a dozen government soldiers immediately stepped forward and protected her in the center. They are the old generals of the old generals, who recognize the wife but not the master, and the ordinary family members are simply frightened in front of these tower-like government soldiers, and unconsciously retreat. Seeing that the eldest lady was about to walk out of the yard, my father finally had no choice. He covered his face and let out a mournful cry. Someone dragged Zhao and that unfilial girl down and beat me. The moon stars are scarce, and I sat in the courtyard with the eldest lady peeling water chestnuts. In the courtyard in the distance, there were screams of Aunt Zhao and Shen Wanrong. The eldest lady wiped her hands and said lightly, "You must be laughing at me in your heart. You obviously have the ability, but you haven't fought or grabbed all these years, and you have lived such a bad life." I put the peeled water chestnut into the snow-white porcelain plate. Madam doesn't fight because my father is not worth fighting for. After a moment of silence, I said, "But ma'am, if you love someone, you should still fight." Madam's hand suddenly stopped. The night is as cold as water, and the moonlight is lingering. After a long time, I heard her sigh faintly. Yes, I know, over the years. I followed the eldest lady to the Buddhist temple on the outskirts of Beijing to offer incense, and I always saw a monk. The monk was always dressed in a half-worn gray robe, but his eyebrows were as stunning as landscape paintings. People called him Master Chinny. Some people say that Master Chinny was once the most outstanding young general in the capital, and he was full of spirit in white robes and silver armor. He grew up with the eldest lady as a childhood sweetheart. And the sword was a token of love he gave to the eldest lady. Ah Yun, I'll marry you when I get back. However, on that expedition, 100,000 troops died in the western regions, and the little general never returned. The eldest lady thought about dying with her, but in the end she couldn't make it. She got married, but from then on she was just a piece of wood with a dead heart. 10 years later, the little general returned. He crawled back from the Shura hell, desperately breathing, wanting to see his beloved girl again. However, the girl she once loved has become a wife. The little general did not bother. He shaved his degree in the Buddhist temple on the outskirts of Beijing, and from then on he was called Chinny. It's all just rumors. I saw the eldest lady and Master Chinny meet with my own eyes in the Buddhist temple. The two saluted from afar, like the moon shining on the mountain, not entangled, not regretful, like two faint passers-by. If they hadn't heard those rumors, no one would have thought they knew each other. Only once, the eldest lady was sick. The high fever did not go away, and the decoction of flowing water was poured to no avail. Dad was at Aunt Zhao's, and the little maid went to invite her a few times, but she was stopped by Aunt Zhao's people. Mother Wu was sweating profusely, and she held Madam's hand and said, "Is it okay to call him? Call him too." I stood aside with the medicine bowl in my hand, and almost instantly understood who to call. Stuffing the medicine bowl to Wu's mother, I rode the fastest horse out of the night and went straight to the Buddhist temple on the outskirts of Beijing. Master Dust One is here. I didn't enter the eldest lady's room, but in the Buddhist hall next door. I knocked on the wooden fish all night. The eldest lady listened to the sound of the wooden fish and gradually got better. Across a wall, she knew that he was with her, and she didn't have to meet, and she had the same moonlight shining on the two. At this moment, in the bright moonlight, I held the hand of the eldest lady. "Madam, there are some things that you think are too late, but it's not too late." She looked into the distance, thoughtful. Aunt Zhao and Shen Wanrong were released after being grounded for a month. My father was so biased that he said that he had hit 30 boards each, but in fact each board was flooded. Aunt Zhao and Shen Wanrong shouted fiercely at that time, but they had recovered in less than half a month. When he saw me again in private, Shen Wanrong smiled openly. She said, "What do you think you can do with that old woman to support you? Look, in the end, a man has the final say, and in this house, no one is older than his father." When the news reached the eldest lady, she was pruning the flower branches in the vase by the window, and after hearing Mother Wu's message, she raised her eyebrows and didn't say anything, but reached out and cut off a branch of the most bewitching peony. She looked at the pruned branches, turned to Mother Wu and said, "Forget it, throw it out. I don't want the whole vase of flowers." Mother Wu said yes, and when she led the little maids to move the flowers out, she had a smile in the corner of her eyes. We all know that the eldest lady has not gotten rid of Aunt Zhao for so many years because my father is not worthy of her to do it. Now, she doesn't even want my dad anymore. The days that followed, it seemed, were peaceful. The eldest lady began to teach me something deeper, and she showed me around the grange and the shop, so that I could see firsthand how she took care of the vast estate. And during the inspection, I was surprised to find that the owners of these granges and shops were all the eldest lady herself, and had nothing to do with the Shen mansion at all. This is extremely shocking. After all, in our dynasty, a woman's property before marriage is her father's and brothers. Even if she becomes a housewife after marriage, all income must be put into the public account, and the woman's own property belongs alone, only a dowry. Therefore, in more than 10 years, the eldest lady has expanded her dowry countless times and managed it into such a large property as it is today. My face turned pale, and the eldest lady glanced at me and sneered, "Look at your stupidity. Do you really think that I haven't done anything serious in the past 10 years except for chanting Buddhism? As a woman, love and money must always be the same. I don't have love anymore, and if I don't make more money, won't it really become a waste of snacks?" I hurriedly nodded yes and was surprised to find the eldest lady seems to have become lively. When I followed the eldest lady to learn the secret of getting rich, Shen Wanrong was not idle. The disciples of Liyuan generally went in and out of Aunt Zhao's courtyard, and the sound of silk and bamboo was endless. I know that it is Shen Wanrong who is learning the green waist dance. She has become more beautiful, snowy and beautiful. And learning to dance for many years has made her body light and soft. When they attended the party of the young ladies in Beijing, the children praised her as the first beauty in Beijing. They were also fascinated by my swordsmanship, but soon found that I was hard-natured and never willing to show them how to dance my sword. Shen Wanrong is different. She has so many talents. She can sing, play the pipa, and dance all kinds of dances. The sons sighed. Miss Wanrong is really talented and beautiful. I don't know who has the honor to hide her in the Golden House. What's more, take me out and compare with her. Both are Miss Shen Mansion. These two young ladies are boring and talentless. In vain she still grew up with her mother-in-law, and now she is not as good as the eldest lady. Whenever this happens, Shen Wanrong will come out to speak. My sister is talented, she has a good abacus, and she probably plans to be a bookkeeper in the future. After saying that, she laughed with the young ladies around her. Soon, it was the day of the assembly in Beijing, and Shen Wanrong was bound to win. In my previous life, I copied scriptures in the Buddhist hall, and you danced at the elegant gathering, and since then, the little marquis has fallen in love with you at first sight. But sister, the person who can dance the green waist dance in this life has become me. What are you fighting with me? I didn't get angry. I kept my head down and fiddled with my abacus. Sister, for the sake of sisterhood, I give you one last piece of advice. Don't dance the green waist dance. Shen Wanrong smiled and raised his chin. You're really scared. She departed triumphantly, and behind her, I shrugged silently. I reminded her, she didn't listen. That's none of my business. On the day of the gathering, the water pavilion was in the pavilion, and the ladies sat in the middle. Chu Muyuan, the little marquis of Xinping Ho's mansion, sat in it. He was dressed in black clothes. His eyebrows and eyes were so handsome that people couldn't take their eyes off, but he had a murderous aura that couldn't be concealed. Those who fear him call him the King of Shura, and those who love him are eager to give him everything and ask him to smile. My sister, Shen Wanrong, obviously belongs to the latter. Halfway through the meeting, with the sound of silk and bamboo, Shen Wanrong appeared in the center of the pavilion with a light gauze dance dress. She moved lightly, shook her water sleeves, her waist was soft, and she was charming. This is Aunt Zhao's killer weapon. She has always believed that all men in the world will be fascinated when they see this dance. The sons on the table did show an obsessive look. Gradually, however, as the initial throbbing faded away, these sons began to look at me and I looked at you. Their eyes also changed from inquiry to shock, and finally to panic. Shen Wanrong didn't notice this, and after dancing, she bowed her body. This dance is called green waist. She thought there would be a tsunami cheering. However, there was silence. Then, the first son stood up. I'm sorry, I've got something. Go first. Immediately the son followed. I'll go with my brother. Subsequently, the other sons also left the table one after another, as if they were afraid that they would be late, and rushed to leave Yaji. Shen Wanrong stood in place. She didn't understand what was wrong. Among the full sons, Chu Muyuan was the last to leave. He was silent for a long time, then stood up and walked towards Shen Wanrong. He has always been cold, and it was the first time that the corners of his eyes and eyebrows showed such a gentle look. Shen Wanrong only felt his heart pounding. Little Ho Yi, however, in the next moment, Chu Muyuan swept past her. He just passed her like nothing and walked over to me standing behind her. He asked, have we met? Chu Muyuan didn't remember the events of his previous life. He just had a familiarity with me. However, even this familiarity was enough for Shen Wanrong to be afraid. In particular, she couldn't understand why the green waist dance didn't achieve the expected effect at all. As soon as I returned to the Shen mansion, I was grabbed by her. Isn't that you? Did you do something in advance? She asked me in a shrill voice. Did you secretly practice the green waist dance behind my back? You jumped to show him in advance. She tried to pounce on me and tear me, but the next moment, the door to the room was slammed open. My dad rushed in with a team of housekeepers. He pointed at Shen Wanrong, his hands trembling. Tie up this bastard for me. Shen Wanrong was held down by the family. She struggled desperately, crying and asking her father, Daddy, Daddy, what did I do wrong? My father has doted on Shen Wanrong for more than 10 years, and this is the first time Shen Wanrong has seen him with such a terrifying look. How dare you ask, how dare you ask? My father's beard was trembling, and his pupils dilated slightly from intense anger and fear. What did you jump on the Yaji? Shin Wanrong stammered. Green-waisted dance. She thought about the green waist dance in her heart. And after learning it, she embarked on the broad road to love. But she didn't know, when the previous dynasty fell, the founding emperor of our dynasty once sighed to the dancing girls in the hall after being drunk. The merchant girl doesn't know the hatred of the country, and she still sings the flowers in the back garden across the river. At that time, what the dancers were dancing was the green waist dance. Since then, this extremely soft and charming dance has been regarded as the glamorous sound of the dead country. In fact, the women in the green building can still dance this dance. After all, it is only the emperor's drunken words, and the court has never explicitly banned this dance. But Shin Wanrong, she is a young lady of the official family, and her actions not only represent herself, but also the attitude and face of the entire family behind her, the daughter of the Shin mansion. At the elegant gathering where she should have talked about poetry and articles, played music and danced the green waist dance in public, forget about the past, but now the country is in turmoil, and there is war on all sides. No matter how much my father dotes on her, he won't be able to keep her after all. Shin Wanrong was locked up in the ancestral hall for 7 days and 7 nights, and when I went to see her, she described her as withered, a pair of bright autumn eyes that were brilliant in the past, and now she is so thin that her orbital bones are prominent. She didn't see me, she was whispering into the air, "Go and tell your father that he has wronged me, that he has wronged me." This dance was asked by Aunt Zhao to dance, if there is a problem. How can Aunt Zhao not know? I walked in and whispered, Aunt Zhao may really not know, she herself is just a dancing girl from a family. Relying on her beauty and flattery skills, she was brought back to the mansion by her father. But the upper limit is only to be a concubine who does not leave the house. The concubine's vision is limited, or perhaps, Aunt Zhao actually knows, but she needs to gamble on this. Over the years, she has been doing some shady business outside under the banner of the Shin mansion, and now she owes a huge debt. She knows that her father will not let her go if the East Window incident happens, so she needs you to marry into the High Gate and become her new support. Shin Wanrong looked at me blankly. For a long time, she shook her head and muttered in a cloak, "No, that's not right. In the last life, you obviously jumped too. Why, you danced the green waist dance and got Chu Muyuan's love." I looked at her with pity. Finally, the truth was revealed word by word. "Sister, have you ever thought about it? Chu Muyuan loves me, but it's not because of the green waist dance at all. In my last life, I didn't want to dance the green waist dance. Although I grew up with Aunt Zhao, I went to the school to listen whenever I had the opportunity, and I knew everything related to the green waist dance, and I knew that once I danced this dance, I would not only become the laughing stock of the whole capital, but also more likely to make the whole family in trouble. But Aunt Zhao forced me." She grabbed my hand. "Ninger, your father has accepted a new concubine to enter the door, and this Shin mansion will have no place for us. You believe me? As long as you dance this dance in front of those princes and grandsons, there will always be people who are willing to marry you, whether it is a wife or a concubine. In short, before you can dance this dance, we will always have more than 10 years of good life." I still refused, but Aunt Zhao tied up the little maids next to me and threatened me with their lives. "You're not jumping. It's okay. It's not interesting to live around that. It's better to beat these maids who have been with you for many years to death, and ask the people around you to bury you first." I asked Aunt Zhao to let go of the little maid, and then danced the green waist dance on the elegant gathering. When I danced this dance, Chu Muyuan was disgusted with me. He decided that I was a man who was willing to despise himself in order to please men, until he found out that after I finished that dance, I didn't talk to any of the children present, but went to the back garden alone. When Chu Muyuan arrived, he saw the words I wrote on the wall. "It's not love the wind and dust, it seems to be mistaken by the front edge." And after I transcribed this poem, I had already hung up the white silk, and I wanted this desperate life. At that moment, Chu Muyuan realized that behind the green waist dance, there were all kinds of unavoidable hardships. He rescued me, and then helped me suppress the other young ladies present, so that the power of the Xianping Marquis mansion prevented them from mentioning my green waist dance outside, as a token of my gratitude to him. I gave him a sword tassel that I had made with my own hands. As a gift, he gave me the 4 treasures of the study. Later, he used that sword to kill enemies on the front lines of the battlefield. I used the 4 treasures of the study room to write down my lovesickness for him in the rear. In the end, Chu Muyuan returned victoriously, wrote 3 books and 6 rites, and asked to marry me. The wedding slip read, "I will hire you as a wife, and I will be united forever," but we didn't stay together. In his previous life, when Chu Muyuan returned from victory, he only saw my bones that were burned black by the fire. On that day, the victorious Xianping Ho walked out of the Shen mansion and stumbled, his back like a lost dog. Everyone knew that his fiancée was dead, so a flowing matchmaker came to the house, persuaded him to mourn and change his ways, and introduced him to a new person. Chu Muyuan drove them away, and then came to the Buddhist temple on the outskirts of Beijing alone. There are 3,000 steps in the Buddhist temple, and he kowtowed step by step and lit the lantern. It's not love, the wind and dust, it seems to be mistaken by the front edge. Flowers bloom and fall from time to time, always the monarch of the East. If you go, you must go, and you must live as you live. If the head is full of flowers, don't ask where the slave returns. Chu Muyuan suddenly cried. He kowtowed to the gods and Buddhas in the temple, again and again, begging them to save me and give me a chance to do it again. His forehead was covered in blood, until a gray figure stopped in front of him. The one-armed monk looked down at him with compassion in his eyes. "The world is the most lovesick and bitter. Well, I'll fulfill you." Chu Muyuan didn't tell me this, it was Master Chinny who told me. On that day, he knocked the wooden fish for the eldest lady all night. And when he left the Shen mansion, he smiled at me who sent him. "Girl, my suffering lies in life and separation, and the person who begged you to be reborn is suffering in death. Fortunately, now, you have the opportunity to see each other again. Please cherish this fate." Under the moonlight, Master Chinny clasped his palms to me. He himself loves parting and can't ask for it, but he still hopes that there will be lovers in the world who will eventually become married. At this moment, I looked at the sluggish Shen Wanrong and said softly, "Do you understand, sister? The so-called singing and dancing talent is just a temporary favor, and love is never such a simple thing. It needs 2 hearts to know each other. I may have fallen in love with him because of the green waist dance, but he fell in love with me because it had nothing to do with the green waist dance. From beginning to end, nothing will change in the ending. He doesn't love you, not because of anything else. Just because you're not me, but I still want to thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been adopted by the eldest lady, and I wouldn't know the story of Master Chinny. Therefore, I owe you all the happiness and stability of my life to you." Shen Wanrong went crazy. She escaped from the ancestral hall where she was being held in the middle of the night, and then came to Aunt Zhao's house and choked Aunt Zhao's neck. I thought that for 2 lifetimes. The person she hated the most was me, but in the end, I found that the person she really hated the most was Aunt Zhao. In my previous life, when Aunt Zhao came to the Ho mansion to marry me, she ran to the courtyard of the eldest lady to show off her might. She said that she was more favored than the eldest lady, and her daughter was more competitive than the eldest lady's daughter. Ninger danced the green waist dance I taught her, and the little marquis fell in love with her at first sight. It's not a slave boasting. Whoever learns this dance will be able to capture the hearts of men all over the world. Shen Wanrong, who followed the eldest lady, heard this and took it as a fact, and became obsessed. In this life, in order to learn this dance, she endured all kinds of use and torture that Aunt Zhao had used and tortured her since she was a child. But I don't want to, and in the end everything is empty. Shen Wanrong pinched Aunt Zhao's neck and screamed hoarsely. And Aunt Zhao also struggled desperately, and scolded back without showing weakness, "Something that is not productive. You yourself are useless, you can't get a man's heart, and now you blame me." If I had adopted Miss Ning at the beginning, she would have married into Gaomen by now and would have taken me over to enjoy happiness together. In the midst of their fight, they knocked over the candlestick, the raging fire burned and extinguished. And the house inlaid with gold and jade in the past was burned to ruins, and Aunt Zhao and Shen Wanrong all died in it. But in just a few months, my father renovated the room, and the new aunt moved in, and it is said that the aunt sang the best kunku opera, and said proudly many times, "Don't blame the master for spoiling me like this. If anyone can sing this song Peony Pavilion as well as me, who can capture the hearts of men all over the world?" The mess in the Shen mansion has nothing to do with me anymore. A year later, Chu Muyuan and I officially got married. On the day of my wedding, I wore my wedding dress and bid farewell to the high hall. The eldest lady sat on a high place, And at this moment she should say something decent according to the process, for example, serving the husband and filial piety to the in-laws, but none of these big ladies said. She was silent for a long time, and finally only said softly, "Ninger. You want to be happy." That's something she didn't get in the first half of her life. After sending me away, the eldest lady put a prepared book of peace and departure in front of my father. My dad was stunned, the shock was followed by rage, and he roared, "Lu Jiangyun, are you crazy? The Lu family can't allow you to leave." The eldest lady nodded. "That's true, so I've already gone back to the Lu family once and cut off relations with them." My dad's eyes widened, he couldn't believe it. A woman reconciles with her husband's family and breaks off relations with her mother's family. How is she going to survive in this world? After a while, my father suddenly realized. He pointed to the eldest lady, and his fingertips trembled. "I understand, you saw that your daughter went to the Xinping Marquis mansion, and you think you have a backer, right?" The eldest lady looked at my father inexplicably. "What kind of backing do I need, if you talk about property? The industry I have managed over the years is enough for me to have food and clothing for 8 lifetimes, and your Shin family and Lu family together are not as rich as me. If you talk about safety..." The eldest lady picked up the sword that had been in her room for nearly 20 years, drew the sword out of its sheath, and the snow-colored cold light immediately illuminated the room. "Master, instead of worrying about me, you should worry about yourself." The eldest lady finally left the Shin mansion where she had lived for more than 10 years. She liquidated her property. She was definitely not greedy for the things of the Shin mansion. And the Shin mansion definitely didn't want to get any cheap for the fields and shops she bought. My father was so angry with her that he fell ill in bed, and when he finally got better, he found that the house had fallen into decline. The housewife is gone. And the remaining charming concubines are all masters who only know how to spend money but don't know how to save money, so that they can compete for favor, and their wisdom is endless. Let them take care of the accounts, and their eyes will be black. My father had no choice but to think about marrying another string, but all the better people in the capital had already heard of his glorious deeds of spoiling his concubine and killing his wife. And they didn't want to marry their daughter to suffer this grievance. My father had no choice but to ask the eldest lady again, "Ma'am, I was wrong in the past. I regret it. I don't want to reconcile with you. The past is all cancelled. You can go back with me. From now on, you are still the master mother of my Shin mansion, and no one can cross you." The eldest lady drank tea. In the middle of the night, I poured the rest of the tea at my father's feet. "This house has bad feng shui recently. Why do you always get into some evil?" The eldest lady said. "Mother Wu, when you have time, please ask the Taoist priest to do something." My father's face was blue and white for a while, and he wanted to have a seizure but couldn't have a seizure. So he was invited out by Wu's mother. After he left, the eldest lady turned her face to look behind the screen. "All right. Come out." I walked out grinning. She gave me a blank look. "It's getting more and more unruly. It's your own father. You don't even want to come out to meet him. Just hide from watching him laugh." "I don't care. Whoever loves me is my flesh and blood. I wanted to kill my own father for a hairpin, and whoever loves it wants to go. So every time I go back to my parents' house to visit relatives, I always come to find the eldest lady and never go to the Shin mansion. The eldest lady still lives in a snowy cave-like house, with only an incense burner and a Buddha statue in the room, but I've already got the goods. I know that the agar wood burned in the censer is more expensive than the burning of gold. She has always been a hidden rich woman, but she is too lazy to show off, and the world is often uninformed, always thinking of pearls as fish eyes. The eldest lady washed her hands and burned incense in front of the Buddha, still looking cold and indifferent. She said to me, "Tell me about your current situation in the home mansion." I, who was already the mother of the home mansion, immediately turned back into the student who was tortured by the teacher, and I didn't dare to take it lightly, and lowered my head and reported, "Since I took charge of Zhongfeng, the shops, mansions, and shops have been counted, and the people in the house have been properly governed, and individual slaves have been disposed of. And small punishments have been given to set an example." At the same time, I received the grapevine that His Majesty was about to trade with the western regions, so I prepared horses, tea, silk, and porcelain with my dowry in advance, and prepared to survey a suitable location near the official road to open an inn. In the future, these earnings will not be included in the public accounts of the home mansion, but will be used as the foundation of her daughter's life. I think I've done a good job, but the eldest lady said quietly, who asked you this? Yes, she looked at me. There was a long silence in the room. The eldest lady sighed. I naturally know that you have learned these things very well. What I don't worry about is what I haven't taught. I understand. Lowering my head, I slowly blushed. He treated me very well. I'm happy to be with him every day. The eldest lady finally smiled with satisfaction. She once told me that as women, we always have to share money and love. Now, if I'm going to tell her why be greedy, and have both, the eldest lady looked out to the window, where there was a blue jade vase with a blooming red plum in it. Outside the window, the night is getting thicker. The moonlight is like silver, and the grey-robed monk carries a flower hoe on his back and sends fresh plum blossoms. Under the moonlight, he made a long salute. The eldest lady also saluted, through the blooming red plum tree by the window. I looked into the distance and vaguely saw a young man and girl in high spirits. When I return from victory, I will marry Ah Yun. Actually, it's okay to wait too long, because no matter how things change in the world, those who love each other will always meet again. Since then, thousands of mountains have no regrets, and thousands of rivers have followed. Finish.